1. During the summer and winter months from 1975 to 1979, I lived near the base of the Pyramid Point Dunes, part of the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. Several times each season, I would wake to see a large band of people emerge from the woods. I was a child at the time. The same elements were present with each recurring visit. I would wake up in the middle of the night to a very bright light shining through my window at the foot of the bed. There would also be a strong, damp, woody smell. I've been trying to recreate it since, and it's close to a combination of pine, peat, tamarack, and cedar. I was hit with the scent one other time while in the Adirondacks. The bright light and smell meant they were coming soon. I was always excited, nervous, and anxious, but never scared. I would crawl to the foot of the bed and lean on the sill, watching the edge of the woods. Soon a long line of people, all ages, would come out of the woods. They were very happy. Some were singing and laughing, others were dancing. The rest were simply smiling and walking. They would head straight toward my window, waving at me and motioning to me to come out and join them. I never questioned if they saw me. They all saw me. Each person reached my window. They would turn and walk up 3 small steps below, and march across the deck that lined the front of the cottage. At the end of the deck, they would walk down the other steps, turn, and head to the bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. The people in this parade were made of brightly colored geometric shapes. They were like 3-dimensional screen prints or woodcuts. But they looked very human, not cartoonish. The area is considered to be sacred land with a strong native history. It is also in line with the Manitou Passage and several sunken ships. Some call it the Freshwater Bermuda Triangle. Near the property, a family member once found the remains of an underground house used to shelter a handful of shipwreck survivors who made it to land during the winter. I would love to hear thoughts from anyone who has a theory, similar experience, knowledge of area folklore, etc. 2. Ever since I bought my house in spring of 2015, I've had everything from unusual happenings to full-on what-the-fuck occurrences. When me and my wife first moved in, I used to hear many strange noises. The first I remember is when I got home late from fishing one night, about 12:30 a.m. I laid down on the couch to watch TV, and immediately started hearing music playing from in my house. Very quiet, but it was just enough to notice. I muted the TV and could still hear it, but once I got up and started looking around, it went away. I sat back down and left the TV muted. As soon as I started to zone out, playing on my phone, I started hearing it again. I got a little freaked out and went to bed. Next was cupboard doors slamming at night. I would wake up at night and hear noises coming from the kitchen. Sometimes they were just random noise, but other times I could very clearly hear cupboard doors closing. This happened multiple times. My wife would also hear noise in the kitchen at times. This would also happen in the middle of the day. We would be sitting in the living room and hear a cupboard door close, a drawer close, or just random noise like someone was out there moving around. The one that really got me was about July of 2015. I had been putting together a changing table for my daughter, who was due to arrive at the end of the month. I had it about half put together and went to bed. I woke up around 1 a.m. and could hear a piece of wood for it being very lightly tapped on another piece. I sat up in bed and it stopped. I sat there for a few seconds wondering what I was hearing, and then out of the dead silence, a piece of wood was slammed onto the top of the changing table, very hard and loud. Scared the almighty fuck out of me. I'm a firefighter and it takes a lot to scare me, but that freaked me the fuck out. The next day I walked around my house and begged whoever was fucking with me and my wife to stop. It wasn't funny anymore, and I had had enough. Me and my family assumed it was the previous owner who had died a few months before I bought the house, as he was known by people to be a bit of a prankster. My grandfather worked with him in a factory, and agreed it was probably him messing with us. After I asked him to stop, nothing happened for quite a few months. My daughter was born on July 31st, 2015, and life got very hectic. We never noticed anything until late 2015 or early 2016. That's when I realized my daughter spent a lot of time looking towards our back hallway, smiling and obviously watching someone or something. On one occasion she was on her high chair, getting fed, and immediately snapped her head over towards the wall and got a weird look on her face and started crying. She would not quit looking over there, and continued to cry until my wife took her to the living room. This continued to happen on and off for a few months. Usually she would laugh, and that was the only time she seemed scared of whatever she was seeing. In March 2016, we bought a beagle puppy to grow up with my daughter, as I've always liked beagles and they seem to be very good with kids. Once he got out of his puppy stage, probably around midsummer, he started paying a lot of attention to that same hallway. Throughout the summer and fall he would randomly look over there and growl or bark. On occasion he would walk over into the hall and start growling and barking like he was trying to scare something away. Once we got him house-trained, he did pretty good, but once in a while he would randomly go into the hall and pee. He still does this today, along with the occasional growl in that direction. Now fast forward to now. Everything has been quiet aside from the occasional unexplainable noise until last week. My daughter is now 2.5 years old, has a big girl bed, and is in the process of potty training. My wife was in the bathroom getting ready for work the other day, and my daughter was in and out of the bathroom talking to my wife and whatnot. The kitchen is blocked off from the bedrooms and bathrooms with a child gate, so that she can't roam the house at night if she wakes up. She was leaning over the gate looking into the kitchen, and out of nowhere she backed up by the bathroom door, obviously scared, and told my wife there was a scary man in the kitchen. The lights were all off out there, and it was very dark. My wife freaked out and pulled her into the bathroom and closed the door. She said my daughter was quite scared of whoever she saw out there. She then woke me up in a panic to have me come out and check out the house real quick. Now my wife is freaked out again, and I'm hoping this isn't just the beginning of things to come. Just thought I would share my experiences, and I will update on anything else that happens. My next step is to get a digital recorder and put it in the hallway overnight to see if I get anything. 3. Hey guys. Since 2013 I've had a few encounters with this little boy, and honestly, it's never bothered me so much up until yesterday evening. I'm not sure if it's something I should ignore like I have been, or if I should try to cleanse my house, myself, etc. The first time was in 2013. Me and my significant other moved into our first place together, which was haunted as fuck. So many weird things happened in that house. I never felt safe in there by myself. One morning I had just woken up and was checking my social media on my phone, just scrolling through stuff. Everyone else was asleep still, my significant other and both dogs, and I heard a little boy in my ears say, "Grandpa?" I looked up from my phone, weirded the fuck out, and I see that my dogs' heads are perked up and looking around the room. A second later, our closet that had mirrors as doors just busted, like cracks all up and down it everywhere. It was loud enough to wake my significant other, who thought I threw something or the dogs hit it to break it. I assured him that I was just scrolling on my phone, and both dogs were laying on the bed with us still. I told him how I heard a little boy say "Grandpa." He said I must have been asleep. I know I wasn't asleep. I was on my phone. I looked up, my dogs heard it, so it happened. The closet doors were fucked, but whatever, we just threw them out after that. The second time in 2014 had me fucked up for a while after. I was walking up to a friend's apartment and was stopped by some lady that told me she knew what my natural hair color was. I thought she was being a dick because my hair was vibrant red at the time, but I just smiled and asked her what color she thought that was. She answered light brown, which is correct. But whatever, she might have seen me before I dyed it, and brown's a pretty common color. She kept talking and told me that she was part Indian, I don't remember which tribe she said she was from, but she said that she can see spirits. I told her that it was cool or something vague because I just thought she was crazy, and I wanted to go up to my friends. As I'm trying to say goodbye, she asks me if I have lost a male in my life at a young age. I tell her no. She's like, well, there's a little boy following you around, watching you. She didn't say it like it was bad, but I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Her friend came out of an apartment after and grabbed her and told me sorry that she was bugging me. I said goodbye and it was nice to meet her and went upstairs. I honestly wish I would have talked to her to learn more, but I was really spooked. Some other small things were that you'd hear someone running through our hallway, but someone small. You could hear the little thumping. Our super sweetheart Lab even growled and bared teeth in the hallway direction before. Our other dog had freaked out in the hallway also. Oh man, so many things happened in that house. I don't think I'll ever know if it was this kid just messing around or something else. I joke with my significant other now that another family has moved into that house, and tell him I'm going to go ask them if they've ever heard weird things happen to them in there yet. Yesterday everything was normal. I was just laying my DS down for a diaper change when I heard my significant other pull up to the house. Thought nothing of it. Finished changing my DS. My significant other comes in and we're talking and he's like, wow, you changed him fast. I didn't understand what he was talking about, so I asked him what he meant. He said that our DS was at the front window waving at him when he was getting everything out of the car. I assured him hell no, it was not our kid, and I was changing him at the time. My stomach dropped, and I got a super uneasy feeling. Then later my significant other said that it was super freezing by the front window and door. I internally screamed, but I didn't want to talk about it anymore at the time. You know, in case the spirit child can hear me. I just told my significant other it was just drafty or really cold outside. We didn't talk about it after. Just went about our night. I grew up with a very superstitious family, and I'm totally tripping balls now the more I think about it. Also, I just found out I'm expecting, and I've always been told to stay away from spirits when expecting, and... what do you guys think? Am I thinking too much into this? Do you think it's bad, or anyone have a theory of why it's following me, if it actually is? 4. This story is long, but it contains a young ghost girl, a demonic old man figure, and 2 exorcisms done on the property. This happened in Lodi, California. It's a very old and very small farm town with a lot of weird things about it. One of the creepiest things I've experienced in this town is the abandoned house on Harold Street. It's the second house to your left as you turn from South Central Avenue. This house has been shut down and abandoned for years now, but I'm lucky enough to have a friend who lives right next door to it on the corner. Enough background though, let me start to get into the story. Naturally, talk of this house came up in conversation while talking about all the weird and creepy things in this town. I wanted to know more about it, so I went to my friend Yonik's house to hear about it. At one point, his cousin actually lived in the house, only for about 8 months. No one stayed longer than a year or 2. Yonik began to tell me his experience from the front yard with the house in plain view. Once his cousin moved in, he had noticed an increase in his drinking, and one day he went over to ask his cousin if he was doing all right. He met him on the porch, and only a few words left Yonik's mouth before he noticed a small girl in all white. Before he could ask anything about the girl, his cousin had said, "Please ignore her, or it will get worse." His cousin lived with his wife and their child, who had a talking Dora the Explorer doll that began to talk on its own. They tried to dispose of the doll and it would reappear in the closet. They would throw it away and it would find its way back. And one day they had enough. They gathered everyone in the neighborhood and had the doll in the center of the room and said if anyone was pranking them, they wanted to know if it was some kind of joke. As everyone began to question each other in the center of the room, the doll levitated and began speaking again. Yonik told me that half of the people ran in terror out of the room. while the other half dropped to their knees, screaming prayers and for safety. Yannick and all of his cousins decided it was enough, and they had gone down into the basement to see if there was anything hidden in the house, causing the haunting. They all went in with a hand on one another's shoulders so that they wouldn't get separated. While they were down there, all they found was some old wall insulation, an old television set, and a lounge chair. Now the basement was completely empty, and had support beams holding up the house, but that was all that was to be found down there. While they were searching the basement, out of nowhere a figure that looked like a demon appeared. The cousins were all frightened and ran for the exit, and once they got out of the basement, they realized one of them had fallen behind. He came stumbling out of the basement with a large gash on his forehead, like he had been struck with something heavy. To make things even creepier, they looked in the basement again, and the blood started in the center away from all the support beams, or anything that could have harmed him. They moved out shortly after. After he had told me the story, we were standing outside in his front yard, still with the house in sight. He then proceeded to tell me that 2 priests have tried to bless the house. The first priest walked in the house and blessed the first story. He then walked into the basement, and while he was blessing and saying prayers, 3 scratches began to tear at his arm, and he began bleeding. Needless to say, he left instantly. The next priest who went into the basement felt more evil than he ever had in his life, and only blessed the doorways. After Yannick told me that, one of his friends, clearly drunk, came out of Yannick's house and began to pee on the haunted house, because he thought he was funny. Immediately after he started, a loud pounding sound came from inside of the house, and Yannick's friend shot back to his property. I've driven by this home many times with friends to show them and tell them the stories, and they always take pictures of it. There's been many times where there are orbs captured, and my friends try to dismiss the idea of the paranormal by saying it was a flash reflection on a window, doorknob, security sign. But you can look for yourself. All of the windows are smashed and boarded up. The front door has no metal to be found or any signs on it. There have also been many times when a black cat has been seen sitting on the doorstep, and for a while someone left a baby stroller on the property. I don't know what the demon's purpose is or why it's there, but I do know that the priests blessed the doors to keep it trapped. However, they are rotting away more and more with every day that passes. 5. My friend's mom, she's a pastor, but when she was a teenager she said she was very serious about witchcraft. At the age of 23, she had a terrible religious experience that turned her into the God-fearing woman she is today. A strong woman. Unfortunately, this is not that story. This is the story of the night the demon who was attached to her moved to her eldest son and my best friend, Laz, when he was 7 years old. It was 2 a.m. and she was fast asleep, when something physically shook her out of a dream she was having, and dictated to her that she should check on her 3 kids. She woke up terrified, and immediately started walking up the stairs. Noticing in the hallway a light on underneath the crack of the door where her 2 daughters and son, the oldest, Laz, slept. 2 girls on each room to the right, Laz's room at the end of the hallway to the left, with a closet at the end of the hallway in the middle. So she simply turned it off, and peeked in each room to see nothing out of the ordinary, and then went back downstairs to sleep. An hour later she was asleep, not yet dreaming, but definitely in her stage 1 sleep cycle right before REM, when she woke up with the chills and a creeping suspicion that she needed to check on her son, not all of her children, but just Laz. As she walks up the stairs, she notices the light again underneath the crack of the door. So she sprints up the stairs, opens the door forcefully, and starts running down the hallway toward her son's room, the last room on the left. As she ran, the lights seemed to shut off, but not at once, like flipping a switch, but rather it matched her distance like an opposing force, the dark closing in on the opposite direction. as she met the light in the middle of the hallway. She was almost knocked off her feet as her chest met the darkness. She understood this as something she used to experience as a teenager, called crossing the void, which is generally only applicable if you have already summoned a demon or entity. And as a sort of added requirement after the fact, you had to meet them halfway in order to communicate. Incredibly dangerous, she said. As if you don't meet it with just as harsh of a force, then you lose, get knocked back, winded, frozen in fear, and are forced to witness whatever messed up vision it would force you to endure. As she was not ready for this, however, it got its way, but did nothing. She just watched a dark figure appear right in front of Lassie's room, never making eye contact with her as it did so. It opened his door, cocked its head to the side, as if it was a dog or cat hearing a noise it hasn't heard before. Which she told me was a heartbeat, which intrigued it, because I was met with the same curious expression when I was chosen. She said. It disappeared, and she knew it went into his room. She forced herself up and hurriedly made her way. As she entered, there was this same dark figure, seemingly 7 feet tall, standing halfway in between Laz's bed and chest of drawers, about 3 feet away from his bed, but leaning over with a huge smile on his face. When she entered and saw this figure, it turned its head without making an expression. That same huge smile, just staring back at her, with its head about 3 inches away from her son's face, nodding in approval in what she explained as fast forward on a VCR. She rushed towards the figure's side and tried to push it away, but it dematerialized right behind her as she did so, causing her to fumble and slam her head against the chest of drawers. She was knocked so hard and in so much mental duress that she was starting to faint, and begged the creature, "Please, not my baby." The last thing she heard before she passed out was a soft "yes," followed by this shrill and malicious laugh that she explained would have been the mix of a baby crying and a pig squealing. The laughter followed her into her unconscious state. She woke up in the morning and his room was ruined. He was asleep outside on the porch, clutching the burnt remains of the Bible that she has spent her entire adult life annotating and translating to her real-world experiences. I tell you this in the hope that you take the paranormal seriously. She has warned me multiple times to stay away from this shit. I have rarely listened, and still actively seek these experiences out, but in my defense, I have a very powerful ally on my side. She is such an amazing woman. I'm going to be getting in touch with her soon. If you enjoyed this true story of hers, then let me know. I will ask her for more, and hopefully even get a couple of anecdotes from her adolescence, if she allows it. We are close, but she refuses to tell me anything about her past before she was religious. Something terrible has happened to this woman, and in spite of that, she has raised 3 beautiful children and maintained sanity against some crazy odds. Thank you for allowing me to share this story. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 73. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, from what I'm understanding, it seems that the whole world is getting covered in snow. I think I saw someone in the comments of my last video mention that they were getting it in Canada. Was it Canada? Well, let's go and check. It's a click away. Nope, that's Reddit. We want to go to YouTube. That's not YouTube, that's the Nerdist. No, we don't want to go to the Nerdist. We hardly ever go there. And there we are. Community. Yeah, someone in Ontario, Canada. They're getting the snow as well, and we're getting battered with it here. So I'll be waiting on a phone call from the hospital to tell me that my appointment for my phototherapy for my psoriasis has been cancelled. If I don't get that phone call by about 3 o'clock, I'll assume it's on. The appointment's at 4. At which point I'll have to wrap up warm and trudge out in the snow, because the weather's so bad, it's not drivable, I don't think, for most people. I know the other day when I called up, the taxis weren't driving. I couldn't get a cab to come out. So my brother-in-law actually ended up very kindly giving me a lift, but it was kind of difficult going, and I wouldn't want him to risk going out again in that. Not for that. So, yeah. I'm kind of two minds if I want it to be cancelled or not, to be honest with you, because if I do have to go out, I can stop in, if they're open, one of the supermarkets and pick up a few extra supplies. Not that I'm desperate for anything, mind you. Okay, shut up, Hellfreezer. Time to move on. Right, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So, I hope you all have nice, comfy weekends. And if you are being hampered by the snow like me, you stay nice and toasty warm. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.